Welcome back to another episode of Coach's Corner podcast. I'm Alex Parras, joined as always by my better half and co-host, Jaclyn Parras. How you doing today, Jack?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever thought, I'm doing everything right, but the scale isn't moving. We're pulling back the curtain on why most fat loss programs completely fall apart and what actually works if you want to get lean, stay lean, and do it without destroying your hormones or your relationship with food.
Yeah, and let's be real, the fat loss space is littered with a lot of bad advice or just misconceptions, I think, by consumers as well, right? People are still being told to cut carbs, slash calories, and do endless cardio. And while that may work short term or may work for specific people, it's totally dependent. It almost always backfires for the majority. So we're going to break down the real science behind it, mindset traps, and some sustainable strategies that will actually last.
Yeah. So if you've been in that vicious cycle, just stuck in that vicious cycle of trying harder but getting nowhere, today we're going to kill some myths, teach the science, and give you a playbook that you can actually win with. Let's jump right into it. There are 5 reasons most fat loss programs fail. Reason number 1, crash dieting and starvation cuts. Jaclyn, what are we talking about?
So yeah, this is a big one. A lot of people think faster is better and want results that are fast, right? But that's not necessarily the best thing to do or the right mentality to have. So they drop to 1,000 to 1,200 calories, and sure, weight will drop quickly at first, but here's what's actually happening. So we're losing muscle along with fat. Our metabolic rate plummets, and cortisol spikes, leading to more abdominal fat storage over time, right? I personally experienced something similar in my life where I was not consuming enough calories on a long-term basis, and my needs were a lot lower. So I was trying to lose weight, and what worked for me, working with a nutritionist at that time, was actually increasing my calories to better support my hormones and my metabolic health. And I ended up losing weight from that. That's just a personal story, though.
Yeah, for sure. Starvation diets and crash diets can really have a negative effect. Not saying that there's not a time and place when you're cutting, but yeah, well, it's really dependent on the case. But yeah, so severe deficits like that can really actually be detrimental. There was a study done in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2013 that they found that people who lost weight quickly were significantly more likely to regain it all and then some within a year. Rapid fat loss is like a crash in the stock market. The rebound is brutal. Okay.
Definitely.
So yeah, I've seen that happen and probably experienced that several times too. So let's go over reason number 2.
Before we go on, I wanted to add something here too. Sorry.
Go ahead.
There's a difference between weight loss and fat loss, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about fat loss, it's really important to retain as much muscle mass as we can. And that's what most people are seeking, but they equate that with the scale or with weight. So a lot of educating that I'm doing with coaching clients, right, is reframing weight loss versus fat loss. So let's continue on.
Yeah. Reason number 2. That's a great point. Reason number 2, overtraining without recovery. Okay. So this is a big one as well. We see it happen all the time. People are just all or nothing, hitting the gym 7 days a week without properly recovering because they're just on that mission to lose as much weight or hopefully fat as possible. So what do we got, Jack?
Yeah, it could be that people are doing, 6 high intensity interval training classes a week on top of lifting, thinking that more is better. But in reality, it's quality over quantity for most people in a blend that works best for fat loss. And overtraining can wreck your recovery, hormones, and nervous system. And that recovery time, sleep included, all that stuff is so important.
Yeah, exactly. Elevated cortisol, suppressed testosterone, impaired sleep, all of that tells your body to hold on to fat. And chronic fatigue kills performance in the gym, which means less muscle retention as well with chronic fatigue, right? So it's a killer. We talked about, I think last episode, one of the episodes, we talked about cortisol and stress and silent killer and whatnot. But yeah, all these things compound, right? So we definitely overtraining without recovery is a big one. Let's move on to reason number 3, no periodization in nutrition or training. Okay. So what does that mean? What is periodization for people that are wondering?
A change over time to adapt to, what's happening and what changes you're going through,
Yeah.
to meet you where you're at, because things are constantly changing, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, with my nutrition clients, I'm recalculating their basal metabolic rate and, their total daily energy expenditure based on what is now. Every so often, it's not going to stay the same as what it was in the beginning.
Yeah. Your body adapts, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
metabolic adaptation, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Right. So what would that look like for someone?
So if you eat the same calories and train the same way month after month, your body kind of adapts to that.
Yeah.
And the longer you're in a deficit, the less effective it becomes. That's why we take breaks too and reverse diet temporarily so we can get back into deficits.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the training side matters just as much. A good program changes volume, intensity, and focus over time. That keeps that progress coming, right? So it's about having that periodization in not only your nutrition, but in your training as well. So that makes sense, Reason number 4, chronic cardio culture. So everybody thinks, man, I need to lose a little bit of weight. I'm going to go run 10 miles a day, right? So that is a cultural thing that we've established, and we were trying to break that I don't want to say myth, but break that cultural, what's the word I'm looking for? Stigma, right?
Yeah, that outlook that cardio is the end all be all, right? And I think that in recent years, it's been reframed, especially coming from a female standpoint on this, that strength training in combination or other forms of training, other modalities are just as valuable, if not more, right? Because again, fat loss is different than weight loss. And cardio is a tool, right? It's not the end all be all. And relying on it as one's main fat loss driver usually just leads to a skinny fat look, right? We need to pair it with something that's building muscle.
Yeah. Strength training should be your foundation. Cardio supports it. It's a tool. It doesn't replace it, right? So I always tell people this, like, you want to gain strength, you want to gain muscle, go lift some weights, create some resistance. If you want to lose fat, look at your nutrition. If you want to work on your cardiovascular health, then run, jog, walk, do cardiovascular things that will make, stimulate your cardiovascular system. So anyways, yeah, they're all tools, right? And used in combination can be very powerful tools. So cool.
Yeah. And we're not knocking cardio. Cardio is super important, but
for your cardiovascular health, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Being specific with that.
Yeah. So, all right.
So we're talking next about muscle, hormones, and fire, the metabolism equation. So muscle is our metabolic currency, really. I'll let you take it over, Alex.
The more lean mass you have, the more calories you burn at rest. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. This isn't crazy significant, but it can be. Like I love this math part. So you're talking about on average about 6 extra calories, I believe, per pound of lean mass that you have on your body. So 6 extra calories just by sitting. Not doing anything. Just the fact that you have more lean mass means you're going to burn more. So therefore, 6 calories over a 24-hour period, that's an extra 120 calories approximately a day, right? So just by sitting there, just by having some more lean muscle mass. So the truth is, the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you're going to burn at a rested state. So this was done by the Journal of Applied Physiology in 2016, was muscle mass is one of the strongest predictors of basal metabolic rate. Okay.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's not just about muscle burning more calories either. It helps with so many other things, right? So regulating insulin sensitivity, your hormone health, protecting your joints and ligaments over time, balance, all these other things that are wonderful, right? And I don't know, I want to shout out Gabrielle Lyon because I love her so much, and I do, but she says that muscle is the organ of longevity, and I totally think that's true, whether it be from a physical standpoint or like more metabolic standpoint or whatnot.
Yeah. And let's talk about the hormones that regulate everything as well. So let's talk about like low thyroid, which you guys have been listening. I have hypothyroidism, which is a basically slower metabolism, or not slower metabolism, but not fully functioning thyroid gland. Let's put it that way. And lower thyroid can equal low energy. Higher cortisol can equal belly fat. And there's so many other things that cortisol plays a factor in. Not that it's all negative, right? But definitely has some negative side effects on the higher end. And then insulin resistance equals fat storage. So this combination, low thyroid, high cortisol, and insulin resistance, it's not good. Let's put it that way, you know?
Yeah. And for women specifically, too, the effects of undereating and overtraining can be really detrimental. And speaking, as a woman, we have been fed all this information over time as to what we should be doing. And I think we're in an interesting period where it's changing in a positive direction, but we've seen, menstrual cycles be impacted, bone density drop, mood tanking, and just like being stagnant in a space that's unsustainable, really.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll move on to under eating that kills metabolic fire. Okay. So, um, and there's so many like interesting things and so many cool people putting great output into the world. Um, but I don't know, like there's so many scientists and there's so many like trainers and there's so many, all these people putting out all this information, like you need to be in a deficit, don't eat this, need to be in a surplus, all this shit. So like, again, just all this suggested that you guys got to figure out for yourself, play around with it. But obviously you have to be in a deficit to be losing weight, right? To be losing body fat. You need to be in some sort of deficit. It's not going to happen at maintenance or surplus. Um, However, at the same time, guys, don't take it to the extreme. These are things that take time. It took you years to get to a place where you're at. It's probably going to take years to get out of it, but it's one day at a time, 1% better. So there's in doctrine reviews in 2014, prolonged calorie restriction can suppress your thyroid and sex hormones, dropping metabolic rate by up to 25%. So again, like being in a deficit's not necessarily a bad thing. We're not saying don't do that, but if you do this for a prolonged state, it has a very negative effect on your hormones, right? Not only just, like your fatigue level, but we're talking like overall hormones, the thyroid, cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, all these things can have a really negative effect. So, and it can also obviously drop that metabolic rate. Even though you're in an extreme calorie deficit, you can actually slow your metabolism down by up to 25%. This is wild, right? So, what do you think about that, Jack?
Well, I think that, again, going back to myself and a personal experience, I experienced this personally where I wrecked it. As a busy trainer, not fueling myself, waiting until noon to eat because I had in-person clients from 6 o'clock till, noon. And that was my first break. And I just wasn't eating right and I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't preaching. What's the phrase?
Practice how you preach.
Practicing what I preach. Thank you. Sorry. But anyway, and I had to repair what I had done over time by reverse dieting, which we're going to talk about later. But basically, it means you could be doing everything right on paper, right? And you are still not losing fat because your body has adapted to survive at that point and like deal with what it's been given.
Yeah. And talk about adapting to survive. I love telling this story and I always butcher it, but me and my quotes and my stories. But there was a study that was done on this hunter-gatherer tribe out there. I think it was in Africa, and I'm not exactly sure, but definitely do some research. Pretty cool. But there's a tribe, a hunter-gatherer tribe in Africa, right? And they wake up in the morning. Maybe they have a little bit of food left over, nuts, seeds, whatever from the night before, and then they go on their hunt for the day, right? So they need to go and they're trekking miles upon miles, right? Now these people, you would think, are burning, you know, thousands upon thousands of calories a day. But the truth is that they have adapted to this lifestyle, this low calorie, intake lifestyle, and they're hunter gatherer. Now they're all very lean people. They're not sitting at the couch at any point. They're not watching TV. They're truly living this tribal lifestyle. And the reason that they are able to survive on such low calories is because their bodies have adapted. Their metabolism is actually much slower. So they can survive on 1,000 calories, on 1,200 calories a day while being active and moving, right? So again, this kind of puts us in this state of like prolonged deficits your metabolism will slow down, right? We are amazing engines, human beings, and adaptation is real, and your body adapts. It is smart. So just because you are in a deficit, of like, 1,000 calories, and you could do everything right on paper. You could be working out, you could be eating less, eating healthy, and still not losing fat because your body has adapted to survive, right? It's adapting to survive, and that's what it does its best, right? And it's not necessarily to burn. So we'll talk about in this next segment what actually works. Phased fat loss strategies. Okay. So
Yeah, so inside Phoenix Rising, and then with our nutrition clients, we kind of recommend the following approaches, right? And phase one would be, and this is speaking back to like something that I had been through myself before, is like, do we need to do a reverse diet and metabolic repair for a client who has been substantially under eating for some time? I, like I said, was unaware, and the nutritionist that I work with was like, had me logging my food. I had already been logging my food, by the way, but she was like, "No, this is not. You need to eat more, and you need to actually like and these are my recommendations." So it can be scary to do this with clients sometimes because they're not open to it because their goal may be fat loss. But bringing up calories slowly, maybe that's 150 calories a week, especially protein, carbohydrates. Introducing strength training consistently is a huge one. And tracking biofeedback, right? How are they feeling? How is their digestion? How are they sleeping? Um, are they sleeping 7 or more hours a night? Are they super stressed out? Are these other things that are needing attention and needing habit tracking in the app? Yeah, because I think I do sleep 7+ hours, getting steps in. We're tracking stress, all the things, because they can all impact fat loss for sure.
yeah, I think, yeah, even like, again, like you go hit the gym really hard, whether it's strength training, maybe you do a hit class, you do some cardio, whatever it is, you go hit it for an hour, and that's amazing. I'm not knocking that, but really where the magic happens is the other 23 hours of the day, and what you're fueling your body with, what your energy levels are, what your sleep and your stress levels are, right? That's where you're going to see this trifecta happen, right? With combined with some sort of strength training or hitting the gym, right? Or movement for an hour. It's really the 23 other hours that really have the pivotal role in how your body's going to recomp or change. Yeah. So the other two would be phase two, right? So now we've kind of looked at phase one of like, possibly a reverse diet if that's necessary, metabolic repair. Now we're going to do a controlled deficit with muscle maintenance. Okay. So now we're going to start to drop calories by only about 10, maybe even most 20%. So if I'm on a 2,000 calorie diet, right, that's my maintenance levels. We're going to drop it by 10%, would be down to 1,800 calories. Nothing too drastic, right? Keep protein high. We're going to look for that 1 gram per pound of body weight or desired body weight. I'm sorry, I don't know the kilogram equation. I think it's about 2.2, right?
And yeah,
But
2.2 or something.
yeah, 1.8 to 2.2. Lift heavy 3 to 4 times a week, okay? And then 8 to 10K steps a day, right? So again, we're not trying to do a lot of hit training at this stage. We're not really putting them on like a crazy cardio adventure. We're really kind of focusing on that strength training 3 to 4 times a week, and then also getting in those steps throughout the day. And then build in refeeds and diet breaks. Okay. So maybe we'll do this for a couple months, and then we'll kind of, hey, we'll bring it back up to maintenance and kind of refuel the system and then bring it back down. So, yeah, that would be phase two. Phase three would be reverse to maintenance. I'll let Jaclyn take this one. Okay.
I wanted to add something real quick to the building of the refeeds and diet breaks. I think it's great for mindset as well, because when people start tracking, it can be a source of obsession, or like perfectionism. And being able to empower clients to take breaks and feel confident in building their plates around what they know is whole food, healthy, and most likely going to hit their goals or support their needs is monumental in taking outside of like just tracking, because that's a good mental break from it too.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, let's talk about reverse maintenance again. Similar to what we talked about earlier, but gradually increasing calories post deficit, right? Maybe 100, 150 calories a week or every 2 weeks, seeing how the body responds, tracking biofeedback, shifting goals to performance or body recomposition. Does the client want to gain some muscle at this time, or go in the direction of building? It's a good time to reanalyze and just educate as well why we need to be at maintenance for periods of time as well as deficits, because we don't want to be in a we're not meant to live in a deficit for life. And just maintain a new set point before the next cut.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You can't always be in a deficit,
No.
right?
And a lot of people are, because they're on this up and down thing for forever. And that's not how life's meant to be.
Right. I would like eat more, move more, have more energy, like I like that too. Like it's pretty wild. A lot of times how people just aren't eating enough, right? And that's why they're lacking energy. Give your body more fuel, it will have more energy, right? So
It can be a scary concept to eat more, though, sometimes for people. And just having that education and communication as to the why helps quiet any of the mindset things that may be going on.
Yeah.
Because coaching is a lot of mindset too.
right. And it's like just simple equation would be like, okay, I'm on a 2,000 calorie diet. We're going to put a 500 calorie restriction, 1,500 calories. And I do that for several months, like not impossible, but like I'm starting to feel the fatigue. My body's running on empty. I'm trying to get good workouts in and I'm not getting as good of workouts in. Maybe I'm burning 200 calories in a workout, right? Depending on what type of workout. Let's kind of flip that, right? Put me on a 2,300 calorie diet. I have way more energy. And now I'm able to burn 500 calories in that workout because I am able to move more. I have more energy. I'm able to get more out of that training session, right? So again, it's all going to be relative to like how you're feeling, your energy levels. Like obviously, like we said, deficits are good, but not meant to be long term.
No.
So,
And a lot of people get stuck in it for years,
Yeah.
honestly.
they do. Yeah, for sure. So most people skip phase one that we talked about. Again, phase one would be the reverse diet metabolic repair, and they will jump right into phase two from already a broken metabolic state. So your metabolism's already broken. We need to reassess this. And people try to be like, hey man, I'm going to go into a controlled deficit with muscle maintenance. Like, shit, you're already broken, right? So we need to fix that first before we get to that. So important to hit those three phases. And that's why a lot of times people fail. They're like, dude, I'm in a deficit. Why am I not losing weight? Well, because your metabolism's already so slow based off the deficit you've been in for years, right? So
Yeah, they may be hungry because they're not eating properly too.
oh yeah.
And that's a whole other thing. So
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one of my favorite topics here, the psychology of fat loss. Okay, so let's talk about the psychology behind it.
yeah, and I already hit some of these topics, but behavior change is really the foundation. We can't white knuckle our way to results forever. We're not meant to be trying to reach these goals forever. So the tracking is there to build awareness, not obsession. And I stress this because I have struggled in the past with some really poor eating mentality, eating habits. And I know I'm not alone. I know it's really common amongst women and men. So awareness, empowerment are some things I really stress to people. And what I see, if I can tell people are starting to obsess, like I encourage breaks, from the scale, from the tracking. Like it's totally fine, right? Education is the second thing. Right? Educating our clients as much as possible and not having rigid rules, having flexibility and understanding where we can enjoy life, enjoy meals with our family while also eating healthy, and then it's always consistency over perfection.
Yeah. I think one of the big things psychologically that changed for me and my outlook on nutrition, and what really helped me, because I've fluctuated weight with the hypothyroidism and battling that and stuff and keeping that in order. But one of the big things that really changed was like, there's foods for pleasure, right? The oral pleasure we get from some certain foods, and then there's foods for fuel. And like your body needs to be fueled, and like what you're feeding yourself, your engine, is how you're going to perform. So like when you stop looking at food for just pleasure or like what tastes good or what sounds good, and you look at it, what does my body need? What does it need for fuel? What is the energy I need to put into my body to be able to perform at my highest? When you stop looking at it like that and you start looking at like fuel, then you're really going to see the change happen, right? And don't get me wrong, I mean, we live in a society of like luxury, most of us, like I'm not gonna say everyone, but we live in a society of luxury, of all these different choices that we have for meals, for food, all these different people out there suggesting to eat this, don't eat this, you need this much protein, you need this much fats, you shouldn't eat this, avoid this. It can be very confusing. But honestly, like you break it down to the simple like whole foods, right? Try to stick with the whole food diet and look at it like fuel. And then once in a while you have your pleasure, right? Where you go and have your cheat meal or your whatever, you know, your hamburger, your pizza or whatever for the day. Um, but if you can do that majority of the time, eating whole foods and a well-balanced diet and stop looking at it like just for pleasure and more like for fuel, that psychologically you will change your outlook on everything and you will just be a very, I don't say lethal human, but you'll be a very top notch. What's the right word I'm looking for?
Balanced, I think,
Balance. I mean,
really.
elite, man. Like, dude,
Yeah.
might be a badass, dude. If you start just like watch how you just start eating whole foods, how much your life is gonna change.
Yeah. Okay. That's what.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna be a badass.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, you know, like all the things we're talking about, they're gonna naturally happen.
Yeah.
You're gonna get fuller. You know, you're not gonna be able to eat as much. You know,
And it becomes a
and,
habit that sticks
yeah, I
long
mean,
term.
yeah, you're not gonna be able to like. It's just there's so many things, yeah, that happen. But again, we're talking progress, not perfection. But again, if you look at food like fuel psychologically, like there's a lot of things that are going to change for you.
And we have this conversation at the dinner table too with James.
Yeah.
You know, who will be like, I
9-year-old James.
don't like this, or, you know, and we explain, you know, not everything that you eat, some things are an acquired taste, but like this is really like fueling your body, you know, nutritiously. And that is more important. That is most important.
Yeah. And there's like also the psychological factor of like we both grew up in an era where our parents, kind of funny, they would use it. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, but I'd be sitting at the dinner table and we have a big old plate of food. We're very fortunate. And again, this luxurious lifestyle that we're all fortunate enough to have of, you know, abundance of food and accessibility and the ease of accessibility to food, not having to hunt and get our own food. But my parents would say, hey, you need to finish your plate. There's starving kids in China. You know, they would literally tell me that line, right? You know, and we were expected to eat the entire plate in front of us, and that carried on to my adulthood where, you know, here in America, right, per se, and I'm getting this, they're over serving everything, and you get this giant burrito and this steak with potatoes and veggies and everything else on the plate, and you are expected, my psychological viewpoint was like, I need to finish this. There's people out there that aren't as fortunate. There's starving people out there. If I don't finish my plate, then I'm doing them an injustice, right? And it took me a while to unlearn that, like, hey man, listen to my body. When I'm full, I don't need to continue eating. There's doggy bags or whatever they call them, you know, for a reason. You can take it to go, boxes, you know, like you don't need to always finish everything that's in front of you. And that's something that a lot of us battle with, right? Especially our generation. But again, eating for fuel, not for pleasure, maybe not eating. You don't have to eat the entire thing, you know, portion control is very important. But again, if you can kind of change your psychological viewpoint on food and how you look at food, like so many other things in your life are going to change. I'm telling you, so many other things too.
You know, I have one more thing to add there.
Yeah.
That I see a lot with clients that, and that is when we do something that, well, the black and white thinking, right? Like, oh, this is good and this is bad. When that's not necessarily the truth. Like,
Right.
I ate a piece of cake, so now my whole weekend's ruined. And
Yeah, that was bad.
that was bad.
Yeah.
And now I'll start again on Monday. And it's like a lot of people get on this cycle of like being super consistent during the week, and then one meal will just throw them off. So I think another mindset tool here is like teaching people that, I always say, like, did you eat, like, you didn't eat 3,500 extra calories with that piece of cake, probably. You know what I mean? Like, you can get back on track tomorrow. It's not going to undo everything. It's going to undo if you go ahead and take the whole weekend. You know, you got to stop yourself there and give yourself some grace and be like, I'm a human. I deserve to like enjoy my life too and have balance, and things aren't good and bad necessarily. It's only bad if I really continue this behavior for myself and not reach my goals.
Yeah, but just like anything else in life, it's moderation and progress, not perfection, right? And if you are kind of constantly coming from that state of mind of like, this is bad, then you're putting yourself in a negative place, right? And so that can be real detrimental as well. talk about stress, like stress eating and other stuff. And like, oh, if you're constantly like feel like you're not doing good enough, then you're going to be stressed out about it, which in turn is going to affect your cortisol levels, and the whole cycle starts over again. So again, giving yourself some grace is important. I think another thing to touch on that is the reverse side of that. When people have a piece of pizza and then you see them doing an extra 30 minutes on the fucking
Yes.
treadmill because they're like, I got to burn off that piece of pizza I had, right? So it's like, dude, give yourself grace. Like this is all a part of the entire progress of everything, it's just like is learning and growing, and then also knowing that you're human. And yes, there are going to be some times when you're gonna falter from your diet, but again, we're looking for long-term sustainability,
Yes.
right? Not for the fad or something that's quick or something that's again going to lose a bunch of weight real quick, or just eat this or just eat that. We're looking for something that's long-term sustainable. So not saying that like, to each their own, guys. We're very much that kind of component too, but just like, I guess the point of this is give yourself some grace, whether it's like, don't have to spend an extra 20 minutes at the gym just because you had a piece of pizza, right? You don't have to bash yourself because you had a piece of cake and then go off the rails for the weekend, right? So yeah, I think that's important. Go ahead, Jack.
I have one more thing that I'm thinking of too. That's a mindset. And it's, again, going back to what I said about educating about fat loss versus weight loss, right? Because we may see that as we adjust an individual's macronutrients, right, for fat loss and increase their strength training, the scale will not budge. But we have been taught over time that the scale is what shows success. And those other things, right? Measurements, photos, all the other things are super important. So I think helping people understand the difference, because if they see the scale not budging, they will associate that with not being successful. And that's not the case always with fat loss.
Yeah. It's kind of like that syndrome, right? Where like you see yourself in the mirror every day. So you're not seeing the drastic changes that are going on over months, right? Because it's a little by little process, and like you kind of get used to it, right? So you see yourself and you don't maybe necessarily see a whole body recomp until it really starts showing. But let's say like, you're the exact same weight you were 3 months ago, and then you see your friend who hasn't seen you in 3 months, and they're like, damn, Charlotte, you look great. You've lost a ton of weight, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, actually, I'm the same weight, right? So again, it comes down to that, what we're taught of, the scale isn't budging, then I must not be succeeding. And that's not always the case, right? Especially in body recomposition, when you're gaining muscle or maintaining muscle, and then, starting to lose body fat. So, give yourself grace on the scale too, guys. It's all about how you look and feel and what makes you happy, right? So yeah. All right, so here's some real Q&As that we get from clients, okay? So this is a little fire round Q&A, real client fat loss struggles, okay? So I'll do the questions, you do the answers. Question number one that we tend to get a lot, and this is just a reference, but I'm eating 1,200 calories and I'm not losing weight. Why?
Well, it may not be enough for your needs and your body may have adapted. Let's try a reverse diet and analyze your strength training and possibly add a little more there, or progressive overload, and see if we can't get some progress in the right direction, or,
Cool. All right. Next question that we get a lot is this all the time. Do I need to cut carbs? 0 carb diet.
No. There are certain cases where you may, certain conditions, right? But carbohydrates are your primary energy source. They will fuel your training and overall health.
Yeah, for sure. And then also the misconception of what carbs are.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
So fruits and vegetables,
Yeah.
right in there with the carbs. So people think carbs, they think bread, rice, the not so complex carbs. But the truth is, no, veggies, fruits, all that stuff's great. Here's another question we get. Should I fast? Okay. Fasting's a good trendy thing right now. And there's honestly nothing wrong with fast. There's a lot of benefits to fasting, but let's talk about, should everybody fast? Does it make sense for someone that's maybe on a reverse diet?
Yeah. So it would really be due to one's lifestyle and needs. And if it works for them, it's a tool that you can possibly explore, but not a rule. And it may not work for everybody.
No.
It doesn't work for me.
No.
But it does for other people, I know.
Yeah, you get grumpy. All right.
I'm
Next
like, why am
question.
I so mad?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because it's like 2 o'clock and I have eaten nothing.
Yeah. So, next question. How long should a fat loss phase last?
Yeah, 8 to 12 weeks max. And that has to do with also tracking, tracking all the biofeedback, tracking photos. Are you at a plateau? When you're plateauing and you're keeping everything,
Yeah.
you know, solid and they're really solid about it, then it's time to let's look at a reverse diet and maintenance for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let your body reset and try it again.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I'm going to say 8 to 12 weeks max for the average.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about like if we had a kind of a bell curve, right?
Mhm.
Everybody that lying there right in between. I guess each person's case is going to be unique on their own journey.
Yeah.
Like, depending on the amount of body fat and the health complications you may have, it's going to be different for everybody. But
Definitely.
again, 8 to 12 weeks is probably your standard before you want to go back to reverse dieting or maintenance, right? So, all right, guys. Well, let's close it up here. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, listening in today. All right, guys. This is us wrapping it up. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Coach's Corner with Jaclyn and Alex. Really appreciate you guys coming on board and listening in. So hopefully you guys got some pertinent information from all this. Remember that fat loss isn't a sprint, it's a cycle. You're going to want to build muscle, manage your stress, and periodize your plan.
Yeah, and if you've been stuck, maybe take a look, stop cutting harder, and start repairing first.
Yeah. So be sure to DM us at ignitefitness_training. Comment on this podcast in Spotify or on the Apple App Store. And join in on the Phoenix Rising app. Stop dieting and start transforming. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you next time.